It's much bigger than the unagi size. So commercial fishery is all adults and also outgoing migrants. There's one specific example where migrant eels are harvested. So the first section is around the unique. As a processing plant where they prepare the eels and let them sit in fresh water to purge before they get processed and sent off overseas. So it's mostly export. We don't eat much, we don't really eat much eel in New Zealand apart from customary harvest. All of the commercial harvesting is done using white nets. These are all standardised. So we have the same net that's used by all of the commercial fishermen, and all of our scientists also use the same fishing net so that we can compare the research catch rates with the commercial catch rates. The commercial nets also have to have a little escape tube. So we've heard there's the minimum, you can't export eels larger than 150 grams. We have a little escapement tube that means anything smaller than 220 grams can get through the hole, so they are excluded from the commercial catch. And there's an upper size limit too of 4 kilos. Short fins don't get to that size, but long fins do. Quite effective in New Zealand. Our rivers are quite small, so you can catch a lot of eel in these systems very quickly. There's been estimates of 80% of the eels in a reach can be caught in one night with a fleet of nets. So it's quite efficient. You would have trouble trying to net where we went on a boat last night with the same technique. It wouldn't work. So this is a really brief history of how our commercial fishery has evolved, I guess. So we started in 1970. This is the total catch.
will be impacted by sales data, and who's collect the data at the moment? Is it the fisherman itself?
Yeah, so first question, yes, it definitely impacted on the finances of all of the fishermen. There were fishermen that dropped the fishermen. So each fisherman collects the data. So it's we completely trust them to fill out the forms correctly. We assume it's correct, and because we're always in a room talking with them, we have a reasonably high level of trust. They're understanding what we're trying to achieve by filling out the forms, and they don't feel threatened that we're somehow going to use it against them. So they fill out the data forms reasonably accurately, we think. We have electronic forms, so it depends on the fisherman. So, in fact, I'm going to talk about elders later, and that's kind of similar. That's every fisherman and every place you're collecting data is a rule unto itself. So you have to work with each person separately to see how they want to collect the data. If they want to write it on pen and paper, then that's fine. You can give them that, fill out the data. If they want to fill it out on your phone, then we're developing an app on the phone, so they can fill out all of the catch data on their phone. So it's the same series of data fields, but just different ways of recording it actually.
Is it mandatory from?
It is, yeah. Yeah, mandatory.
Back to my first question. What's the government do at that moment to deal with the fishermen that may be against the regulation?
The regulation changes. I don't know.
We can learn from you from the side what happened at that moment, and also what is the best approach to deal with the fishermen that may be against with the.
Yeah, without, if I just hazard a guess, I would say communicating and sharing knowledge and letting them know why it's important is probably the most important thing. Showing data, showing catch rates, showing how things were changing. We had lots of information coming back from minority groups about the size structure that was changing. So it's good. It's tough. I'm sure it was very tough. That's my predecessor, Don Jellyman, talks about tough conversations he had with fishermen and how they said, you are ruining my life. Or not quite as bad as that, but you can imagine people, it's their main source of income, and then things dramatically change. It's not going to make them happy. Tough times.
Thank you, ma'am.
Getting everyone on the same page.
Man as well as the research institution use the same gear and standard. Which came first? Is it the government that imposed on use this fishing gear so we can have common data, or is it the research institutions that adopted and okay, the fishermen are using this, so we might as well use this for our own purposes to standardize? That's first. The second is, how long have you had these similar gears so that how long do you have standardized data? Was it from the beginning or at some point in the 80s or somewhere?
Good questions. It was the fishermen who started with using fight nets first. It's quite a popular fishing method in general, these fight nets. And so the scientists sort of came in later. It's actually we're still working it out at the moment. So we've been using similar fight nets for quite a long time. There are some sampling protocols that only came in 3 years ago. Actually, I saw you've got the same. Some sampling protocols coming in that we heard in our first presentation yesterday. So that started 3 or 4 years ago, and they're slightly different again. So so it's not quite an easy answer, but it's been similar. The scientists have been using very similar fight nets for quite a while. And now the sampling protocols that came in, they're going to be identical. I say identical, but we don't have escapement tubes in our nets. So the scientists don't have the same 220mm tube to let the small eels out. So what we will do is we'll take our catch. We're always measuring lengths of all of the eels in our catch.
So when we want to compare, because it's really nice to compare total catches between all of the different areas we have data for, and so you want to compare it between all of the areas where the commercial people are fishing and also all of the areas where the scientists are doing something. So we just, to make sure it's comparable, we just remove all of the small eels from the total catch in the scientists' collections.
Aquaculture, and there is no exports to only domestic consumption for the usual people.
For glass eels, there's nothing. So no harvesting, no aquaculture. But the adult fishery is exported. Yeah, there's not much of the adults that are consumed within New Zealand. Answers your question.
To which country?
Which country?
To which country?
To which country?
Oh, the exports. It changes every year. It's all based on market demand. Taiwan is one of the major exports, and Europe. But I haven't really looked at too much of the sales. So the sales data is collated, and that's also analysed as well. So we try and remove the effect of the market elsewhere for larger fish, and they also change species. So the market, I had no appreciation for it until I started seeing the data, but the market really drives the fishery in terms of what sizes of eels are being targeted and which species. So the market changes around quite a lot, but Taiwan is one of the biggest ones.
My question is about the size limitations. You may mention that 150 is to 220 is the
Yes.
size limitation for catching.
Yep.
I mean, what's your basis for the size?
I tried to, when you asked that question yesterday, I tried to find that actually, and I can't find what that was based on. I'm sure it was based on something, but I have to do some looking and send you something later. We've actually, the minimum size has been increased again, actually, a little bit. That's been voluntary in some places as well. The commercial fishermen have had a voluntary increase in size. So I mentioned how important conversations are between everybody, and I've mentioned it a few times. The fishermen said to us at one meeting that they're going to increase the minimum size in some of the areas, and they've also stopped catching longfin in some of our areas as well, voluntarily, because there's concerns around the status of longfin. So they've implemented those changes themselves.
Thank you. The reason why I keep on asking about the 150 gram is because in the Philippines, the limitation is only 15 centimeter, around 10 grams. And I keep on telling my colleagues, scientists and the stakeholder to increase it to 150, but they were asking for a basis for increasing the size.
I'll see what I can find and send it to you. Any more? Yeah.
Yes.
So you say that the eel is exported to Taiwan, for example. Is it exported as a live eel or processed?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, both. I'm not sure what proportions would be each, whether it's live or processed.
What size, may I know? The minimum size?
The minimum size is 220 grams.
220.
Yeah, so it's roughly 400 millimeters in length.
And maximum?
Maximum is 4 kilos.
4
kg. So that's, it depends on species, but it's well over a meter.
Required by Chinese market is 550 gram, and we exported as a live eel at the time. Then in 2012, we changed our species to Anguilla bicolor. And then for the question from Tofa, the people against the regulation from the government, you say, is
Yeah, what I was asking about actually the fisherman itself. I don't specify about the glass eel, but for the olive eel fishery, including glass eel, what is actually the condition in New Zealand and then like maybe you have any information on that?
I saw in Australia, the eel is almost similar with in New Zealand.
Yes, I want to ask the biological aspect there. And you said you are having the series data. So how about the recruitment pattern in New Zealand? Yeah. And also what's the migration because in Myanmar now, I'm not the specialist in, but we are trying to find some species, the Elsa. Also, this is also the transboundary species between Thai, Myanmar, and India, and Bangladesh. So we are trying to do the protected area for the spawning ground. But spawning season is not constant. Something after 2 years and change again to another place or something like that. So how about in the such kind of mechanism happening in your news area?
So just to make sure I got the question. So you're talking about recruitment. If you monitor recruitment of eels, yes, we do. I've got the next section. I can show you all of that in detail. In terms of the adult spawning grounds and spawning movements, we haven't really done much work in that area. I'll talk about that.
I just want to asking about you applied the minimum size is around 150 grams and start to minimum plan for the eel. My question is, did you separate the species when you apply the management plans, or include the three species that you have in New Zealand?
They were included together to start with, but they've since been separated, and they're now managed completely separately. So they were all managed as one stock, but now shortfin is managed separately from our longfin. But that's only been a recent addition.
They are allowed to harvest.
What happens is there's a little tube. So you're asking about the 150 mil fish, how the little escapement tube works?
No, I mean if the catch still inside the fishing gear.
Oh, yeah.
They are allowed to harvest, or they have to release.
They have to release. Yeah. They work pretty. Yeah, exactly. They're included in bycatch. The little escapement tubes work pretty good. If your net is really jam-packed full of eels, then it's possible some of the small ones won't make it out, and they'll have to separate them out later. But generally the net's not too packed, so the smaller eels can always find a way out.
Okay. And the fishing gear, the fishers will buy the gear from the market, or they make themselves?
They buy them. They buy them made. They're about $130 New Zealand now, so $80 US at a guess per net. They used to be much more expensive, but they've got much cheaper now. We buy them from Australia.
Thank you.
Dams, any of the big companies or anyone, they have to apply to the local government for a resource consent. And these are managed, and they imply restrictions and bylaws, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, on that resource consent. And one of those is almost always that they have to facilitate upstream eel passage. It's not just eels, it's all about freshwater fish species, because a lot of them move up and down the waterways. So that's almost always a consent condition that's placed on the dam. And the dam owner and operator has to enforce it and make sure any big build-ups of elvers, all elvers have to get caught and transferred upstream. So they can install a fish pass, which is just basically a tube or some kind of ramp for the eels to climb up. But a lot of people are doing trap and transfers in preference to the fish passes. They can be more effective. So we're having someone there to catch them with their, they only have to go up a small ramp and into a trap and then take them upstream instead of having to climb or zigzag their way up this and get up. So this is quite a high dam. I'll show you in a minute what the original fish pass looks like. It's now been decommissioned at this site and we do trap and transfers instead. And the cool thing about that is the person doing the trap and transfer can take the eels wherever they want to. So if there's a fish pass, they're all going to end up on the other side of the dam, whereas the trap and transfer people can take them upstream to good habitats and stock different areas. So we kind of piggyback on these trap and transfer schemes. This is a map of New Zealand and these are the main dam sites in New Zealand where there's really efficient, really well established trap and transfer schemes. They're trapping and transferring a lot of elders every year. And we work with all of them to monitor the catch at the sites. So I'll just show you an example. So this is the Mararoa River down the bottom of the South Island here. It's quite it's all relative. This is big for us. It completely blocks the river. There's a fish pass up the side here, but you can't really see that one. It's quite a big one. It's designed for trout and salmon. We don't know how effective it is for elvers. And the theory is you're blocking the whole river here. There's no way eels can get past. So you set up a trap at this site, and you're pretty much going to, we assume you're catching most, if not all, of the elvers arriving at that dam. So in the middle here, they've got this trap set in the calm water, so it's really rough and fast either side, so elvers can't get past here. So even if they did, they'll get washed back down, and the theory is eventually they'll find this slow flowing area. So here's the trap. It's lowered up and down into the water. When they want to clear it, when they set it, they set the height manually and roughly set it in the water surface. And after they pull it up, they can then clear all of the elvers that are caught in the trap. So this is quite a small catch. It might be a kilo of elvers there. Some of the sites can get 20, 30 kilos each day. So our elver, we've got quite a defined recruitment season for elvers. So in Indonesia, the species can recruit all year round. Whereas in New Zealand, they only come in during summertime, so November through till March. So they're really defined period. And these people will clear the trap and transfer every day during the main times of the season, around December and January. They can leave it for a little bit longer if there's not too many elvers there, but they'll be clearing it every day. So they'll take the catch, they separate them using this mesh bag. So we try and keep this simple, so that the trap and transfer operations are not generally run by scientists. They're run by research partners, so often Māori in this case. And so we keep things simple for them, and they just use a catch bag to separate the small eels from the big eels. So elvers and eels get separated by this bag. This is a big modified trailer here. So all of the elvers go into here, and then we then estimate how many elvers there are in the total weight that day. So we measure individual weights of elvers, and then take the total catch on that day and divide it by the average weight to get some estimate of how many elvers were transferred on that day. And we also work out the ratio of the two species at the same time, short fins and long fins. And then they drive further upstream and find somewhere nice to release all of the elvers, and they're rotated around, and we keep track of weights of elvers that are being transferred and where they're being transferred to. This is just to show you how different each site is. So all of the dams are very different, and all of the traps are very different. So this is actually this one. I'll show you this one shortly. This is a Karapiro Dam in the North Island. This is our longest time series. We've got 22 years of data from this dam. They set this one up on a big winch. We also have a few floating traps that just get thrown in the water and move up and down, because some of the discharge areas are quite variable. They'll go up and down when they're spilling more water or less water, so these traps are designed to move up and down and make sure that eels can always access the ramps or the traps. And they're quite complex at a couple of the sites. So this one here, the eels have to swim up onto this concrete slab, and the elvers have to cruise along the edge, and then up this trap ramp here, and then they get caught in the bucket. If you're unlucky and you come up this side of this concrete island, then the elver has to swim up another ramp, and then across the walkway here before they drop into this concrete area, and then down and then up the trap. And this actually works quite effectively. And there's traps, so there's a series along here of turbines, and there's traps along a couple of other these turbines as well. At this site, this is the original fish pass that was installed to start with. So it's just a pipe that's about that big in diameter. It's filled with concrete in the bottom to help the elvers grip it and climb up it. And it started here and went all the way up around the corner and then zigzagged up and then over the other side. So it's a very long bit of pipe for the elvers to swim through. And that's been totally decommissioned now. It's not used at all. The trap and transfer scheme is much more effective. So much fewer losses of elvers. There's some other sites in the North Island where they tried a similar thing. So everyone put fish passes in to start with, but another site I'm thinking of, all of the elvers died from either getting too hot and overheating because there wasn't enough water, or they got eaten by seagulls, or they got eaten by rats, or they got eaten by very big eels and big fish on the other side of the trap, other side of the fish pass. So as the fish would come out and drop in, there was bigger fish ready to eat them. And that actually happened quite a lot of places. In fact, one of the transfer sites where they capture all the elvers and then release them into a lake, they have to change their release point within the lake because there's a whole bunch of big perch that quickly accumulate and eat all of the elvers.
So according to your experience, fish elver transfer scheme is better than a fish passage?
Yeah, generally yes, that's the rule. We can also collect data much better for the trap and transfers, so it's kind of a shifting, it's a moving feast really. It's a moving feast. The trap and transfers are good because we can piggyback and collect all of the data. We can't collect all the data so easily on a fish pass. You can put a trap over the end of a fish pass and monitor how many eels are going through, but we prefer to do it the trap and transfer schemes. It's all a cost-benefit trade-off. If there weren't many elvers coming through some of the sites, a fish pass might be better, but we like the trap and transfers.
This one is cheaper than this transfer scheme or to build a fish license?
In the long term, fish pass would be cheaper, probably, but how it depends. There's lots of trade-off. Which is more effective? Is it probably a different answer?
We ask the company, they will ask this one is cheaper for them.
Yeah. Yes. That's the. Like I said, we've got good relationships with all of the dam companies. For this, we have some so they're always on the same page as us, and we're lucky that they're willing to pay. So they pay for all of the traps and the trap and transfer schemes in a lot of the places, which is great.
So the trap is managed by the government, not by the dam?
Yeah, it's managed by the dam. So the dam operators pay for the traps But it's not always the case. The central government pays us to collate all of the data. We're just about to get into that now, actually. So we're paid to collect all of the data. It's then, because of the consent, the resource consent that the dam has, they have to provide fish passage, so they have to pay for it themselves. Whether that's a trap and transfer scheme or a fish pass is kind of, that's up for debate to a certain extent. But that's all funded by the dam companies. They're making money out of the resource, so it puts some back into keeping track of the data. So we collate all of the alga data from the trap and transfer schemes. So we work with all of the dams and help them set up their trap and transfer schemes and record all of the data. And we then collate it and look at the total numbers of algas that are caught each year. And we generate this normalized catch index from each of the dams. So 0 is a median catch for the year. So these are 4 different sites. We've got long fins in the red, short fins in the blue, and the 0 line means that within that year you just had a standard median sized catch. So if you look at the long fins from this site here, Wairua, you can see it jumps up and down quite a lot between years, and the same for short fins. And this is our main site, so we've got 22, sorry, I'm trying not to point the laser in your eyes, 20 years worth of catch data from that site, and it's extremely variable. So long fins and short fins both jump around a lot. So same at this site here, this one, season fishing, stun the water, catch the fish. There's a whole lot of technical aspects about how well it'll work depending on the conductivity. We can talk about that later if you want to. We now have some sampling protocols. So these are the sampling protocols I mentioned earlier. That talks about bike nets, standardised bike nets, and a standardised way of using electric fishing, because everyone uses electric fishing, but everybody uses it differently. In New Zealand, we want everyone using it consistently so that we can compare everyone's catch. And we now have this that outlines that. And so the standardised protocols are being put in across New Zealand at the moment. So the regional government is responsible for monitoring fish, all of freshwater fish, and the central government is helping them put into place these standardised sampling protocols. That hasn't happened yet, but it will happen soon, in the next couple of years. So in 20 years that has started this already. So they started sampling using these protocols at 30 different areas within their management boundary. So I'll show you 30 sites every year with using electric fishing machines. And we've started to look at their trends in catch. No one can harvest glass eels in New Zealand at the moment. But we have done a few studies on movement. There's been some investigations into it, but nothing's come to fruition yet. We haven't started anything because we don't know enough about glass eels. Has been the rationale so far. I'll talk about a bit more of that in a minute, but it's just been left alone at the moment. So we've gone as far as sampling methods, figuring out how to sample. This is one of the biggest studies on glass eels that's been done. They use these really, really big bike nets. They basically block off the whole river. So this is the height. The water has pushed the net flat here. That's why it kind of looks like it's on an angle. And these two guys are in there kind of clear the net, clear all of the glass eels out of their shore. We have sort of found a few, so it's quite a defined period for glass eels. All done close to the coast, and all done, they come in at night time, So when it's dark and when you have a big tide, so a new moon or a dead moon, I've heard someone call it recently.
Use the technologies we have against ensuring that the income and the benefits of the resource for the environment and for the people is maintained. So that's a really nice story. Thank you very much for sharing.
The adaptive management is just add a little bit to the end there. You're totally right, Kelly. That's a great summary. We have just recently reviewed the longfin quota in New Zealand 2 years ago, and that's going to get reviewed again shortly, within the next year or two. So that just gives you a feel for how often the quota is reviewed. That's not typical. The quota is not reviewed that often all the time, but adaptive management is the way to go, I suggest.
Thank you. Anyone? Any question? So, if we don't have any other question, Dr. Shanan still here until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so you are free to ask during the break or lunch. So, you are close. Please give applause to Dr. Shanan. So,